A little short one tonight about the abuses of the Department of Justice and the FBI and many state authorities targeting Americans for standing up for truth, justice, and the American way. Now, I notice an awful lot of Trump people whine and carry on about how Donald Trump was targeted and that there was an attempted coup against Donald Trump, and the FBI went to great lengths to cheat, lie, and steal in an extremely underhanded fashion, even against a presidential candidate. Well, here's a message to William Barr and Christopher Wray, who's very well aware of these facts, and of course Donald J. Trump and the American people. Back in the 1980s, I went to great lengths to expose the massive land swindles and the massive savings and loan and banking fiasco that was going on all over Texas, and from Florida to Maine, from Maine to Alaska, from Alaska to Hawaii, back to California, up to Washington State, Utah, Idaho, Oregon, massively in Missouri, massively in Arizona, massively in Texas, all over the Gulf Coast, all over the East Coast, all over the central United States. Massive land frauds. Toxic zombie developments is the destination on the net where you can learn about the reality of these massive real estate swindles tied directly to the enormous banking and savings and loan scandals that came out during the 1980s, 1990s, and hell, it's still going on with this massive subprime predatory foreclosure, massive subprime predatory mortgages, and all this bundled securitized mortgages, and this giant real estate fiasco that has bankrupted the banking system in the United States several times since the 1800s. Donald Trump, Christopher Wray, my good old buddy Christopher Wray, and William Barr. Donald Trump has not been the only person in America to be targeted by the underhanded Fed, by the underhanded DOJ, by the underhanded FBI. Large numbers of citizens in the United States have been targeted for destruction and assassination, character assassination, by the feds with false charges and stalking and harassment and all kinds of stuff. And this guy right here, I challenge you to 30 minutes on national television anywhere, and we'll discuss it. We'll talk about the giant land swindles of Houston and San Antonio and Dallas, all over Texas, all over Utah, all over Florida, all over California, Hawaii, Alaska, Oregon, Idaho, the Carolinas, all up in the East Coast, New England. These giant real estate swindles and cons all across the Poconos. And Christopher Wray, you know damn well that I'm not exaggerating here, and so don't you, William Barr. And you can bring Mueller and Comey and Stotts, and you can bring the whole Clinton Bush gang with you if you want to. And we'll have us a nice little discussion on how the United States government targets people to shut them up. It was done to me, and I got plenty of witnesses and tons of records to show that that's a fact. It was done to me, and you betcha I want compensation. I want my reparations for what was done to me in Texas and what was done to me when they stalked me all over the country, trying to shut me up about massive corruption associated with the banking system, massive corruption associated with the mortgage system. Ask anybody today and they'll tell you about the giant mega bailout and the giant mega settlement of Barack Obama and Eric Holder and Eric Schneiderman and the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau with the, what they call that there, the Financial Fraud Investigation Task Force. And we can talk all about these massive banking, mortgage, and real estate schemes and scams that have been rampant all over the United States since going back in the 1920s, the 1930s, 40s, 50s, heavily in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, all through the 80s. And you betcha, hey, William Barr and Chris Wray, you bring Bill and Hillary Clinton and Neil Bush, and you bring Marvin Bush, and you bring Neil Bush with you, and we'll talk about all these funny little dirt deals, this land scheming and scamming. And on a final closing note here, Donald J. Trump and all your Trump troopers there, Donald Trump is not the only person in America that's been targeted by the FBI. It's not the truth. The FBI has been out of control for quite a long time, and I'd love to have a discussion about it on national television. And yes, Mr. Christopher Wray, that's a direct challenge to you and to William Barr. So folks, I'm going to leave it right there, and as always, look for the links below, and hasta la vista, God bless, and you betcha, we're definitely coming back.